All right, Truth Seekers, I am back. You remember Michael Fanone, the Washington, D.C. Metro cop, who sat before the Select Committee Tuesday morning to recount what he went through in defending the U.S. Capitol from the Christian fascist mob of psychotics, ginned up, organized, and promoted by the orange vomit Donald Trump. Well, he's been getting phone calls, as you could well imagine. And he had one that he played Tuesday night on CNN's Don Lemon Tonight program. Maybe you saw that. The one he played, it was a male caller, unidentified, of course. These cowardly little pieces of human waste never identify themselves. But here's part of what was said by this man, and he's referring to all four of the officers who testified. This cowardly little dickless man said, quote, "I wish they would have killed all you scumbags because you people are scum. Too bad they didn't beat the fuck out of you. Even more. They stole the election from Trump, and you know that, you scumbag." There's more. Fanone said he wanted to share the voicemail just to remind people that there are a lot of Americans out there that believe the bullshit retelling of the events on January 6th by Trump and these Christian fascist members of Congress. Fanone told Don Lemon, quote, "Unfortunately, I've come to expect this type of response. It's not the first time," he added, "that people have expressed similar opinions to me. There is an element in this country that believes that," end quote. He's talking about the theft of the election. And this interview with Don Lemon was on just a few hours after Fanone testified before the House Select Committee investigating this bullshit. Fanone, as you know by now, suffered a heart attack, a concussion, traumatic brain injury. He was dragged down the Capitol steps. He was beaten and tasered until he shouted for mercy that he had children, which made a few of these monstrous son of a bitches in the crowd protect him and pull him back up the stairs to where other officers had gathered. And as he was talking about this with Don Lemon, well, no, in his opening comments to the committee, if you remember, he got very pissed off. He said, quote, "I feel like I went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room." He's talking about these filthy Christian fascist members of Congress who deny or minimize the insurrection. And he added, quote, "But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist or the hell actually wasn't that bad," end quote. And all of a sudden, if you remember, he hammered his hand down on the table and yelled, "The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful," end quote. Well, Officer Fanone, I know it doesn't come as a surprise to you. I think being a frontline worker of any sort, but especially law enforcement or emergency work or nursing work, you see the worst of humanity, or you see humanity in its worst moment. But what happened on January 6th was what the Christian fascists want 24/7, 365. In the months after the insurrection, Officer Fanone has become the unofficial spokesperson or figurehead for all the officers who served on January 6th. And he also has appeared several times on Don Lemon's show. He's been on the morning show on CNN. I've seen him. And on Don Lemon's show, he publicly reacted to his body cam footage from January 6th. Talk about a triggering moment for PTSD. And he really railed against Republicans for trivializing the violence. And as we know, we should know this just from what we've learned since Vietnam, or if you're not that old, since the first Iraq war, and then the Desert Storm. And if you're not that old, okay, then George W. Bush war crime against Iraq, where a million and a half Iraqis were murdered by George Bush's orders, or George Bush's order of an Afghanistan invasion, where literally thousands of Americans have died. Doing what? Doing what? But because of this, we, unmilitary types, should fully understand now PTSD. Who doesn't? I've said before, referenced my own uncles. It used to be called shell shock. But now it's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So when someone like Fanone, Officer Fanone, starts to recount what happened, or the other three cops that we saw during the hearings on Tuesday, when that begins, when they start to talk about it, you can see the agitation. You can see the physical manifestation of what is going on in their limbic system, their adrenaline, their all sorts of chemicals that are being immediately released into their bodies because they are reliving these horrific experiences. So here we are months later, and these officers who battled the mob, not just those four, but all of them are still contending with this physical pain and the psychological pain and the emotional disorder. Fanone told Don Lemon a couple of months ago, quote, "Some of the terminology that was used, like hugs and kisses and very fine people, is very different from what I experienced and what my coworkers experienced on January the 6th. I think saying that is dangerous." Well, who talked about hugs and kisses? Who talked about very fine people? This filthy, putrid should be put up against a wall after a fair trial and done away with orange vomit. Now, Fanone, who has received an honest-to-God diagnosis of PTSD, wrote a letter a couple months ago to members of Congress, to the District of Columbia Council, and the mayor's office, in which he said he has, quote, psychological trauma, and I experience emotional anxiety when lawmakers deny the brutal truth about January 6th. And Fanone told Lemon this past Tuesday, Don Lemon, that he felt compelled to share that phone message uncensored. There's a lot of F words in it, a lot of N words in it, and a lot of homophobic slurs also. So if you saw it on CNN, you heard the whole nasty, psychotic diatribe. The phone caller added, quote, "You're on trial right now, lying. You want an Emmy, an Oscar? What are you trying to go for here? I could slap you upside your head with a backhand and knock you out." End quote. Yeah, this cowardly little pissant, of course. And the caller then brought up the Black Lives Matter protests that turned, there was some violence last summer. 1/1,000,000% of what was called for, in my opinion. But he accused Fanon of not caring about people, quote, destroying our cities and burning them and stealing out the stores. Same kind of rhetoric that right-wing assholes and Republican lawmakers who criticize the House Select Committee now for this investigation. And after the full recording of this sick voice finished playing, Don Lemon asked Officer Fanon what he wanted viewers to understand after listening to that garbage. And Fanon said, quote, this is what happens when people tell the truth in Trump's America. Yeah. What has happened to him? But you can tell they're Christian fascists. You can tell they're Christians because they go after a person on the basis of race, sexuality, courage. I mean, all of it. The use of the N-word, insulting their parents. This is what religion can do to a person. I'm not saying everybody who subscribes to one of these Abrahamic religions is out of his fucking mind or her mind. No, I'm sure there are a few people who have retained sanity. I don't know how. While they also maintain the non-sanity necessary to believe religious bullshit. But I'm sure some people can do it. I know people who do it. But you can tell that this was a Christian fascist. You're not going to hear a Jew saying this kind of shit about somebody who put their life on the line to protect people. You're not going to hear a Muslim talking about a Muslim American, an American Jew. You're not going to hear an American who happens to be Muslim using this kind of language, insulting somebody like this, whose crime was telling the truth, just like Fanon said. Who do you hear say this shit? I mean, come on. Who do you hear using this kind of language, saying this stuff? White, male Christians. How does that make you feel, huh? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.